I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Good morning, Bucknutters, and another good morning it is. January 27th, 2015, a snowy Tuesday in the Gem City at least. Things are happening so fast and furious on the recruiting trail that we could not risk taping an interview with Bill Kurelic. We had to bring him in live. So, Bill, thanks for getting up early and joining us this morning, although I know you've probably been up for a while.
My pleasure, and at this time of the year, you better get up early because the Ohio State coaches certainly are. They're everywhere.
And if there's one person to talk about that, it is the Dean of Midwest Recruiting, the William J. Kurelic. Bill, last night, Ohio State got a commitment from DaVon Hamilton, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Pickerington Central. I always get my Pickerings confused. Defensive tackle, about 285 pounds, kind of been an on and off again recruit, and there is some reticence among the fans about what they're getting. Why don't you let everybody know what you think the staff has picked up in DaVon Hamilton?
Well, first of all, evaluation is so important in recruiting, and every staff misses on some prospects. No one's perfect; it's an inexact science. But I think when you look at the track record of the Ohio State staff, this Ohio State staff, you've absolutely got to realize that this staff is great at evaluating prospects. Ezekiel Elliott they evaluated over Derek Green. People didn't like it at the time, and, well, we know how that turned out. So they've evaluated DaVon Hamilton, and, again, they've continued to evaluate. They continue to evaluate prospects. They don't just do it one or two times. They continue to evaluate prospects, and the more they evaluated him, the more they liked him. They look at their class, they feel like they have room, and they offered him a scholarship. So, it's like you and I talked about, Dan. We used the comparison of Pat Elflein. You brought up that Pat Elflein was the number 67 prospect in Ohio his senior year. And interestingly, DaVon Hamilton is the number 67 prospect. And if DaVon turns out to be as good as Pat Elflein, then everything will be just fine.
Exactly. And it's also important to know that DaVon Hamilton has not turned 18 years old yet. He's still a young kid. He does seem like a possible candidate for a red shirt. And under Mickey Marotti, if you look at him and the way people describe his body type, he could be 6'4", 310 pounds 18 months from now. So, I think you made a real good point there, and we have to just, at some point in time, just trust in Herb and trust in the staff. Speaking of which, it now seems like Herb is just deciding, all right, we want the best of the best of the best. He has made an offer to Greg Little out of Texas. That's not a name everybody is familiar with. They should be. Talk a little bit about who Greg Little is and kind of what that represents about Urban's style these days.
Well, I think just by talking about his ranking alone says a lot. Greg Little in the 247 Sports Composite is not only the country's number one offensive tackle for the class of 2016, the number one prospect in Texas for that class, but he's the number one prospect in the entire country for the class of 2016. So, he's 6'5", 282 pounds, and safe to say that, he is an absolute five-star gem. And, at this point, with a national championship in his back pocket, Urban is just saying, hey, I don't care if you're committed somewhere else. I don't care if you're the number one prospect in the country and you happen to be from somewhere like Texas or Utah or whatever. We're going to go after you. And we think we have a product here that you should consider and may have a hard time turning down, and let's go get it.
And Little is verbally committed to Texas A&M, is he not?
Correct. He has been committed to Texas A&M since June 20th of 2014. But, again, that's not going to stop Ohio State from going after him. If Greg Little has some reciprocal interest in Ohio State, the Buckeyes are going to go after him. And even if he doesn't right now, they'll continue to stay in touch as long as they think they have even the slightest shot at landing him.
Which is wonderful. Big story this week has been, and you've been all over this, Bill, which has been great for the site, is the recruitment from a state that most people associate with skiing, and that is Utah, and that is Porter Gustin, who I saw score a touchdown in one of the All-Star games on a deflected pass. Very impressive-looking athlete. Kind of almost looks like, I dare say, a young J.J. Watt look. I don't know how they plan to use him. But there's a big visit coming up for him, and you've been all over this. So what's the itinerary for Gustin?
Well, Ohio State has, that's another kid that everybody thinks is not going to Ohio State. Everybody seems to think that, at least nationally across the country. But he's a kid that Ohio State, again, is not shying away from. They continue to recruit him. Luke Fickell's recruited him. Ed Warner's recruited him. And today, the man, Urban Meyer, recruits him. Urban Meyer's making a home visit with Porter Gustin today. It'll be followed up by an official visit by Porter this weekend to Ohio State. And, the significant thing there, Dan, is that it's not just Porter coming. It's a whole crew of people coming. Porter's mother and father are coming. His grandfather is coming. And, it's a whole group of people coming. And you don't do that if you don't have some legitimate interest, because it's going to cost the family a lot of money to make those flights to Columbus and make the trip and all. So it's going to be an interesting time. I'm not saying Ohio State's going to get Porter Gustin. USC, I still think, is the school to beat. But I am saying that there is a legitimate interest in the Gustin family in Ohio State.
Yeah, I was going to say, go Google or use whatever airline search engine you like for 5 or 6 round-trip tickets from Salt Lake City to Columbus, and that's a pretty penny right there, no doubt. So that definitely does show some interest. I want to finish up with what was really an impressive recruiting, I don't know what to say, just a recruiting development over the weekend, that Isiah Prince was able, the verbal commitment to Alabama, the big offensive lineman out of Eleanor Roosevelt in Greenbelt, Maryland, was able to be on campus all weekend, and it was kept under wraps pretty much. Obviously, an Alabama verbal commit visiting Ohio State would have sent shockwaves throughout the recruiting world, and has since done that. But what are you hearing about Isiah Prince, and what are Ohio State's real chances with him?
Well, I think Ohio State has a legitimate chance, and I think right now, anybody that feels like they can definitively say where Prince is going to end up, I think they're just pulling the wool over your eyes a little bit, that I don't think he knows at this point. And I legitimately think that he can end up at Ohio State, back with his commitment, or he is still committed to Alabama, but staying with his commitment to Alabama, or ended up at Maryland. I don't think Maryland's out of the running. It'll be interesting to see if Isiah goes ahead and makes an official visit to Maryland this weekend. That's not out of the question. Alabama is going to be visiting with Isiah this week. Ohio State certainly would love to have him in Columbus. And, he's a guy that we may not know for sure until National Signing Day, when he puts that pen to paper where he's headed.
Just to wrap things up, Bill, who are some other guys you think that the staff is focused on real hard this week as they get after it?
Well, Kerry Combs is recruiting in Cincinnati today. Of course, the Bucknuts have a couple rather huge commitments down there, none other than Justin Hillier, the 5-star linebacker, and Jake Hausman, the outstanding 2016 tight end that committed to Ohio State at the Buckeyes junior days. They were going to, interestingly, see Michael Manet from Pennsylvania, one of the country's top 2016 offensive linemen. Urban was going to go see him yesterday on Monday, but that didn't work out because of the snowstorm. I'm sure they'll try to reschedule that. It might be tough, but talk to the Manet family, and they're obviously hoping Urban can make it, but they also know that that's going to be a little tough with schedules, being made out in advance and everything. Luke Fickell was in Georgia yesterday. Richard LeCount, the outstanding 2017 athlete they've offered. That's a former teammate of Raekwon McMillan. Look for going to see him. Obviously, High State has recruited well in the state of Utah. You know, they've got Brandon Bowen that's committed, one after Gustin. So, not surprisingly, Urban is going to make a home visit with Brandon Bowen today, along with his visits to Porter Gustin. So, you know, it's going to be, Dan, quite an interesting week to wrap things up going into National Signing Day. You know, they get their visits finished up this week, and then they wait. Well, they don't wait. They keep working, but they'll then see on National Signing Day how everything turns out.
My guess is going to turn out pretty well. We appreciate Bill joining us for bringing the straight knowledge. And believe it or not, people, got to stay on the site all day because Bill has some more nuggets coming that we didn't even release to you now. So make sure you stay locked into Bucknuts all day. We never know these days when we're going to be sending out these commitment emails. Believe me, they're coming fast and furious. Everybody have a great day, Bucknutters.